Hi, my name is Seraphine, and I'm going to talk to you about the book Go Ask Alice. So, this is the diary of a 15-year-old girl, and it talks about her tragic experience with drugs. So, the title Go Ask Alice is a reference to the film Alice in Wonderland because Alice would sometimes have mushrooms that would make her go taller or smaller. So, it's just to say that Alice knows what the effect something can have on you. So this was published anonymously in 1971, and the author, Bridget Sparks, came out a year later to explain that it's actually based on the stories of girls that she worked with in her psychology practice as she was a psychologist. Um, okay, even though people thought that it was a real diary, well, it's still very strong. It's very strong book. So it's aimed at the kids of the 90 because at that time it was right after the 1960s, and that was when it had the most drugs around. The peace and love community. So many people were involved in drugs, and it wasn't really very good. It wasn't a very good time. But again, it was for the kids, but it was also for the parents, because at the end it talks about a psychologist view of the diary, and it's basically to give advice to the parents with the adolescents because what happened to her could happen to anybody. So this story takes place in a town in America. A family had just moved over there, so this girl, we don't really know her name, but we're going to call her Alice. She went to a party and she just to meet new friends, and she had drinks, and in the drinks there were drugs, LSD, and so she drank one and she didn't know it, and then explained to her what was happening, and she thought it was good, but then she decided, I'm not going to do that again because drugs are bad. And so she ends up trying it again, and she tests marijuana, heroin, so LSD, cocaine, crystal meth, speed, ecstasy. So it gets really bad, and the ones she uses the most are LSD and marijuana. So she left home many times. When she tried to stop drugs, she was blackmailed because people wanted her to go get them some drugs. So the problem followed her even afterwards. So what shocked me the most, really, the part that shocked me the most in the book was when she explained when she talked when she was completely high, because sometimes she would write in her diary when she was completely stoned, and just seeing how she is and how different she is. She thinks of things that you wouldn't normally think about. She thinks about killing people. She thinks about incest. She thinks about things that you just don't think about. A normal person doesn't think about that, so she's not in her right mind. You can also see her maturity evolution. So, like for example, her language is like ours because she's our age. Is normal at the beginning, and then it gets worse and worse. She starts to be much more depressed. She doesn't care about anything anymore. She swears much more. So it has a complete effect on her personality. Afterwards, there are long, short paragraphs because sometimes she would write whenever she wanted. Sometimes she would describe long things. Sometimes she wouldn't. And so a peculiarity is that sometimes it has question marks for as a date, because she would be completely stoned, or she would forget to write the date, so we wouldn't know when she would write it. And like what I really liked about this book was, first of all, you never expect what's going to happen. You always want like you don't you're always wondering what's the next bad thing that's going to happen. And also the fact that it could happen to anybody. It could happen to my friends, it could happen to me, as she wasn't the one who started it. It wasn't her fault. And also, it reminds me a huge amount of Anne Frank, because they both, Anne Frank and this girl, I'm going to call her Alice, considered their diary to be their best friend. Also, they're our age, so we can really relate to them, at least at the beginning, and you can just think, oh my God, this could happen to me. Like Anne was her experience with the Holocaust. Alice was for her experience with drugs. What I really like about books is when they can make me feel something, and I felt really, really deep compassion, and I really liked it about that, and it's just really strong. And basically, I just watched the film, and after that, I'm never going to try drugs in my life. It's a really good way to make people aware of how bad drugs can be, and it's just amazing how bad it can be for someone. So I really recommend this book for you. If you don't want to read the book, you can watch the film. Film is they leave out a lot of things. It's still good, but I think the book is still the best thing, really, and you can really see how she feels and how she is. So I think you would really like it. Well, if you like Anne Frank, you'll like this. So I hope you'll read it.